Star Trek is that thing I used to watch. And then as I got older, I started to appreciate it. And I still don't watch that much Next Generation as the thing. Like, I like the episodes that I've seen. I just haven't seen too much of it.
Well, let me give you a list of the best ones, and
Okay.
we'll turn you around.
Yeah. And then, oh my gosh,
She's one
okay.
of my favorite things ever.
One of my friends got so mad at me because she hates the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies
Yeah,
so much. And I'm like, well, that was like one of my favorite movies of 2009. And she gives me this death stare for like 10 minutes. Like there's no like looking away or anything. It's just constant, just in my face. Like, what's wrong with you? And I couldn't look away because it was one of those things of I realized that the original things were your baby and everything, but it's a good movie. Calm down. And I realized that movie is littered with plot holes, but it's still a good movie. And like legitimately, she kept bringing it up for like day after day after day, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're talking about the Star Wars prequels. Well, at least they're not the '09 Star Trek. And she'd just look at me like, what's your next comment, sir? And I would just sort of give this awkward silence. Sort of like now. But I mean, I like both of those movies, and I steadily preferred Into Darkness, which I think you did that video where people like declared that as like the worst Star Trek movie of all time, which
I don't understand that.
I know it's like there's so much worse Star Trek movies than that, especially. Okay, what I always forget the order of this. Which one is the one where William Shatner did the special feature where the people did the remix where Captain Kirk is climbing a mountain? Why is he climbing a mountain?
That's five.
But which movie? Oh, I thought you said that's fine for a second, and I'm like,
No, no, I said that's five.
yeah,
That's Frontier.
yeah. I'm like, that one's much worse than this. Why are you bashing that movie, or why are you bashing this movie? And you can tell there was actual effort put into this movie, when that movie just sort of was like William
Yeah,
Shatner
it
just
does.
slamming his face on a keyboard, and then
And I know, and here's the thing. You know why they did it. You know that if the same question was asked to them 2 years from now, they wouldn't have said that. The issue is it's recent. It's not what they wanted. They're irritated about it, and so they all lash onto it like that because myriad things. How dare you do this to Khan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or why even use Khan, that sort of thing. But objectively, that doesn't make it the worst one. I understand complaints. I share a lot of them. But taking it on its own merits, and especially if you're a giant Star Trek fan, you can't go into Darkness expecting what you wanted before you saw '09, because you know what franchise you're in. You know at this point what you're getting
yeah,
yourself in.
I like
It's like the folks that insisted on, and if you don't like this movie, fine, whatever. I understand, but it's like the folks that insisted on hating Watchmen because they didn't think it should have been made in the first
oh no,
place.
I love Watchmen.
My answer to that is, well, and I just mean to anybody
Yeah,
listening. If you don't like Watchmen, fine, I get it. But the thing is, if the problem with Watchmen is that it was made, then there's not a thing it could have done to satiate you. Which means you either don't see it, or you say, okay, that was all right, but it should have been made. You see what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
it's not fair to say the problem with this is that someone made it.
yeah.
Well, or if that is the case for you, I don't understand why you would see it. I don't know why you would give it money. I don't know why you would go to it
Yeah.
and see it. So the folks that and again, me being a huge Star Trek fan, I get the issues with Darkness. Believe you me, it is Star Trek's greatest hits. But '09 had that same thing, and so it's like, do we have to keep mining Wrath of Khan? Can't we make up some new stuff? Can't we go in and, I don't know, exploratory direction? Given that Star Trek is about exploring
Yeah, yeah, that's
things.
the thing that's always like weirded me out about those two movies. Like,
Right?
except
Yeah.
for the
They're
intro to
hitting
Into
for
Darkness, we
fun.
haven't had like, oh yeah, we're exploring strange new worlds and stuff. It's like been one scene of that so far. Other than that,
Yeah.
it's just been like, oh, we met this random guy in the middle of space who
Well, and
happens to not
that's
like us. Either he's from the future or he's from some
yeah.
distant past. Yeah, he's gonna screw us up. Let's just fight him for the whole entire movie. and then they actually never have anything that sort of, I guess, resembles the original Trek show. I,
Well, that was the problem with not giving it a moniker, right? With just calling it Star Trek, because the title doesn't mean anything except that it's this franchise you've heard of.
yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, like, I wouldn't have minded that so much if they had just given it some kind of moniker. But the idea of let's just call it Star Trek, but we're not actually exploring anything. I really resisted that.
I mean, and J.J. Abrams, I've heard him in interviews talk about multiple times, he wanted to make a Star Wars movie, but Star Trek was
Yeah,
like the closest thing he could get to.
yeah,
So,
I
so
know.
essentially, it's like this is what his Star Wars would be like, just, slight changes and everything. Well, not slight, it's huge changes, but...
I don't think so. I think that it's more like Abrams wishing he could make Star Wars and then making Trek a little more like Star Wars, which is not the same as this is what his Wars movie would be like.
Yeah.
I think when we see his Star Wars, it's not going to look like his Star Trek movie. It's going to be more in line with what you'd want to see for Star Wars. I really think that I could be wrong, but I really think that the Star Wars fans are going to be very happy with him.
I know, okay. I'm going into episode 7 the same way the same way I went into Dark Knight Rises was, I want this movie to be, like, awesome and everything, but I'm going to look at it as this is going to be the worst movie ever made, so my expectations by that point will just be blown away if it is good, or that I could be like, well, at least I was right,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Because, Dark Knight Rises, like, I saw that movie in theaters, like, my expectations were blown away, and because of the fact that people went in there with such high expectations, which you can't stop, I get and everything, but because of the fact that people went in there with such high expectations, a lot of the people just ended up, like, hating that movie, just because it's like, oh, it's not as good as Dark Knight. I mean, come on, if you compare it to, like, well, I know this is a bit extreme, but if you compare it to, like, Batman and Robin or something, you should be happy for what you got, because... Lord, that movie. No one wants to talk about that. I don't know, but like I'm going into that the same way I'm going into Star Wars Episode 7, just because there could be a very just big chance that this ends up just completely sucking. Just horribly. And it'll blow up in everyone's faces, including J.J. Abrams. And no matter what, this movie's going to make money.
It couldn't be worse than the prequels.
I know.
I mean, there's no way that it's worth, because even the '09 Star Trek, as much as I wish there was a story there at all, was fun. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself, and there's some good characterization going on there. It's gonna. Surely, with Abrams at the helm of that thing, we're at least going to have characters with some kind of dimension, which is a lot more than you could say for the prequels,
Yeah.
where everybody was wooden. And at least it's not all going to be shot in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
Like, at the very worst, at that movie's worst, it's going to sometimes have things shot outdoors.
Like, that's, like, the one thing I love about watching the prequel special features. They're like, we're going so in-depth with this and everything. And at one point, they literally said in the special features, every shot in this movie has some kind of digital effect.
Yeah.
Which just astounds me. That there's no location shooting or anything.
When you have that much money, and I mean, I get that that kind of CG can be really expensive, but it looks like, bear with me, because this sounds kind of silly, but in certain places, it looks like you could have made it on television.
I know. That's what
I say that because, yeah, you've got all this stuff happening on screen, but you're going to shoot all of your dialogue exchanges over the shoulder?
I know.
And then once again, here I am making all the points Red Letter Media has made. This is why I don't talk about these movies, because like this has been done better than I could ever do it. But yeah, I mean, it looks, and I hate to say this, it looks really lazy.
I know.
I remember going into Attack of the Clones when it first hit theaters. I was a senior.
Attack of the Clones is my prime example to anyone as just this is how you don't make a movie.
I remember walking into that and going, I really never expected to see a Star Wars movie where the live action characters didn't look like they were integrated with the CGI. There are all these places where I'm like, I can tell that that's just a couple of people in front of a green screen, and you shouldn't be able to see, or at the very least, it shouldn't take you out of the film. You know, like if you notice, if you're really thinking about it, you've seen things where it's on a green screen, and if you really thought about it, you could tell, but it doesn't take you out of the film. You know, like it's integrated well. It doesn't distract you. Sin City is that way.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's all shot on a. I'm just saying that
But Sin City was the stylistic thing was the difference.
Yeah.
This was just being lazy.
It had to be done that way. And most importantly, the dialogue exchanges were not all done over the shoulder.
Yeah.
People just sitting on chairs or something.
And then there's, you know, the thing that everyone brings up, Anakin being one of the most creepy teenagers who, however old he was in Episode 2, just in the galaxy. Why did they decide to make him just just the way, if you describe it, imagine you're like 15 or something meeting this like 8-year-old, and he has like a crush on you. Or she, in our case, that'd be weird, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, like, you're just babysitting them, they have a crush on you and everything, you're just, oh. Then you meet them like 5 years later, and they still look at you with just this completely serious and slightly just insanely creepy face, just, I'm still in love with you. At that point, you'd think she would call, like, security or something, but then again, he was supposed to be security in that movie, so that would kind of be redundant. But I just find him insanely creepy, and how when he murders all of the people inside the Tusken Raiders, including all the women and children and everything, like, all that Padme says is, everyone gets angry, and it's like... He just slaughtered like 20 people.
I will even be able to stop people from dying!
And then I just want, why don't they make sure, like, I'm a person who will always be like, I want that on a shirt. One line I will always want on a shirt is just Anakin's face, and below it says, it's all Obi-Wan's fault.
What we need to do is we need to get the guy who voiced the brain in Pinky and the Brain. Did you ever see Pinky and the Brain?
Yes.
The guy who voiced and he does this great voice with some other things outside of the brain, like